Outbreak of COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on humanity. With 105 million cases and 2.4 million deaths worldwide, it has not only created a global health crisis but also has had a deep effect on the way we perceive our world and our everyday lives. Not only the safety measures put in place to contain the spread of the virus also required a significant population refraining from doing what is inherently human, which is to find solace in the company of others. We also ended up witnessing the heartbreak of death, illness, and loss of livelihood on a scale that is truly horrific. Somehow, people looking to safeguard themselves and others soldiered on. This is a small attempt to understand how people coped with lockdowns and social distancing. Within this context of physical threat, social and physical distancing, as well as public alarm, what has been working for some of us and what we have learned from it so far. As we embark on this, our thoughts are with those who have lost loved ones to this pandemic.
I think one thing that I miss the most is actually having my students in class and live performances. I am so tired of online teaching and online performances. So that's the thing that I miss the most in this time.
हमने क्या मिस किया कोविड टाइम्स में, तो ये मिस किया कि मेरे घर में मेरे भाई के 2 छोटे-छोटे बच्चे हुए और अभी तक हम उनसे मिल नहीं पाए हैं और वो लोग 9 महीने के हो गए हैं। इट इज़ सो फ़नी कि हमने उनको लड्डू गोपाल दिए थे जब मेरी भाभी कोशिश कर रही थी कंसीव करने की। तो सच में एकदम लड्डू गोपाल जी की तरह ही उनके घर में ड्यूरिंग लॉकडाउन बच्चे पैदा हुए एंड अभी तक हम लोग उनसे मिल नहीं पाए, बट दे आर हेल्दी, दे आर हैप्पी, दैट इज़ द गुड पार्ट। और ऑफ कोर्स मिसिंग द फ्रेंड्स, मिसिंग ऑल द गुड टाइम्स वी हैड, missing going to India, missing going all to all the trips that we take vacation wise. So I miss that. But mostly, the most one thing that I want to do is go and see the babies.
The thing that I miss the most about quarantine is meeting up with my friends. During college, when we would go every single day, we would always meet with our friends between classes. We would study with them, and now we don't have that. But we've needed to find different ways to meet with them. So every week we have a group FaceTime, and then we're always on the WhatsApp group chat and talking about what's happening in our classes and just trying to still be in each other's lives in as much of a way as we were before.
What did I find most challenging this year? Well, I got married in March 2020, and my husband had to go to a different city after that. And then the lockdown was imposed, and both of us could not meet each other right after the wedding, pretty much till the end of the year. So that was definitely the most challenging part of 2020 for both of us.
चैलेंजिंग अबाउट पास्ट ईयर, आई थिंक चैलेंजिंग अबाउट लास्ट ईयर तो पूरा ही बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज था। हाँ, शुरू हुआ था तो बिल्कुल ऐसा नहीं लगा था कि ऐसी बीमारी जो पूरे विश्व को एक साथ अपने शिकंजे में ले लेगी, उसके साथ पूरा साल निकालना पड़ेगा। तो उस और वो भी अपने किसी से भी, अपने यहाँ तक कि अपने आस पड़ोस किसी से भी बिना मिले, अपने घर के जिसे कहते हैं लक्ष्मण रेखा जो बताया गया कि लक्ष्मण रेखा खींच के रहिए, घर के बाहर नहीं जाना, घर से अंदर कोई नहीं। तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज था कि आप एक जिस हर चीज़ से कट ऑफ होके बिल्कुल कमरे में बंद और इतने लंबे पीरियड के लिए रहें।
The most challenging part for me last year was not being able to hug my friends. I'm a hugger, and if you know me, whenever I meet my friends, I just go and hug. So that was the most difficult part for me. Later on, when we started meeting in small social bubbles, we would meet, but not being able to hug was kind of a big deal for me. Like I would just go around and hug, and then I would realize, oh my God, what I did should not be hugging. So I had to train myself not to hug when I met my friends. So that was the most challenging part for me.
What I found the most challenging with distance learning was that the majority of my classes for college were asynchronous, so that meant that they were not being taught in person or like during a live lecture with my professors. So a lot of the work and a lot of the material that we had to learn was having to be done on our own. This causes sometimes to be hard to kind of get your questions answered because there were so many people that had questions. So sending to sort of like the email box or going to office hours, it was always crowded, as opposed to when we were in person and when we were on campus, a lot of times these places were like very empty for a lot of classes, and you were able to get your questions answered in lecture as opposed to having to wait.
It's a little bit odd for me because I graduated in May of 2020 and then I started university in August, but I was in a different country with different restrictions in place. So I had two different models of teaching, but I also was, in two different phases of learning. So for high school and the the first half of to March to May, it was quite easy actually because a lot of my assignments had already been assigned. I just had a few Zoom classes, and the teachers were really lenient on seniors to just kind of get whatever they wanted in to the teacher, and you kind of could chill. So it was much more relaxed. It wasn't as serious or structured or anything like that, and it was totally fine for me to kind of just turn in my assignments and catch up with my teachers and graduate. However, at university, we had a hybrid model where we were in person and also on top of that having pre-recorded lectures. And I think just the challenge there was to keep yourself on time and motivated because you're not having a normal routine or schedule. You're kind of making your own as you go and sort of trying to figure out like what's the best time, for you to get everything done. And it can be a little bit discouraging at times to really, I don't even know how to say that, but to like keep yourself motivated basically. But I think, for me personally, that was probably the most challenging, just kind of not having that normal or anticipated structure and routine or schedule that I would have had normally, and kind of feeling it out and figuring out for myself like what's going to work, because again, no one really knows when things will sort of resume in normalcy, so you're kind of just like in this limbo.
I moved all my dance classes to Zoom, and while I'm really happy that I've been able to continue to teach online, I find it really, really hard to teach online. Dance is not easy to, it's such a visual art, and to teach sides, angles and everything, but I must say that the students have adapted. But I miss having the children in the classroom, and I think that I've been working doubly hard trying to teach and communicate dance through a computer. So that's been really one of the biggest hurdles that I've had to face during this time.
So I was definitely able to work from home. My company was very strict about following the lockdown norms imposed by the government in India. Initially, the work was pretty slow, and I was not used to, not going to a physical place and working. But eventually, work picked up, and our company actually ended up, designing apps that provided. And because I work in the agriculture sector, so we ended up designing apps which would provide farm to table facility to various localities over here. So lockdown worked a little in our favor, if I may say, So it was not all that bad, just that it slowed down for a bit. But I could definitely work from home.
So what helped me during this lockdown was that I was able to kind of distract myself and also sort of, learn new hobbies and new skills. But I was also able to watch a lot of Netflix and have Netflix watch parties with my friends, and we had Zoom parties. So it sort of was similar to what we would do if we were going to college, except we had to do it in a way that was making sure that we followed the policies that were laid out to us both by our university and by the CDC and the government.
What helped? फ़ोन। हाँ, फ़ोन बहुत बड़ा साथी रहा। और ये बहुत बड़ी सच्चाई है कि ये आजकल का स्मार्टफोन ना होता तो इतना लंबा लॉकडाउन बिना किसी से मिले हम कैसे गुजारते। ये फ़ोन ने हमें बहुत बड़ा, जैसे कहते हैं कि आपको एक बहुत बड़ा सहारा, ये दोस्तों से दूर रहकर भी दोस्तों के साथ रखने का एक बहुत बड़ा सहारा था। तो फ़ोन तो था ही, हाँ ऑफ कोर्स योगा, काढ़ा, ये सब ने भी हमें बहुत बड़ी हेल्प दी।
The biggest realization that I had was, it's a small word, but it's very significant word now. Hobby. I think everyone should get a hobby. Talking with my friends, I have realized there are two kind of people. Set A, they have many hobbies. Set B, the only involvement they have is their job. They go to work, they come back home, and that's all. So for the people in set A, it was much easier because during this time they could keep themselves busy, had numerous hobbies, and they were involved in different things. Whereas set B got the, I think, major burn of the situation because they couldn't go out. They were trapped in homes and they had no hobby. So get a hobby, and it's in a good way. Get a hobby because it's very important.
We were a few families, 2-3 families that we created a bubble with. And if we met other people, we wouldn't meet people for 2 weeks. So that's how we've managed it. But since the pandemic has gotten worse, since winter, we haven't met anybody at all. So this tiny bubble has been good for all of us. I think we are all lucky that we are in 2021, where we have the internet, we have FaceTime. So it doesn't feel like we're as isolated as we could have been without these tools.
I started practicing more during quarantine was baking, and I picked up cooking as well. My family's really into watching the Great British Bake Off, so I started to pick up recipes that the bakers had made on the Great British Bake Off, and then started to make them in our own house, just to compare and to see if I could make them as well as they did. And then my parents got a pasta machine, so now we can make our own homemade noodles. So we make a lot of Thai dishes, and so we make our own noodles for those, and we're trying to get into making pasta with homemade noodles.
Early on, in the beginning of the pandemic, I taught myself dot mandala, how to paint, to do dot painting. And I also started painting on rocks. So I spent a lot of time learning, researching, and teaching myself how to do these things. So I had a lot of fun doing that.
And I utilized this quarantine period to pick up a new skill, that is cooking. I never needed to cook before in my life. This was the first time I took up cooking and I realized that I am pretty good at that.
What did I miss least? मिस करने वाले की लिस्ट इतनी लंबी है कि ये सोचने में शायद टाइम लगे। हाँ, शायद लिपस्टिक लगाना मैंने बिल्कुल मिस नहीं किया, बिल्कुल भी नहीं मिस किया।
I do not miss the hectic lifestyle I had, going from place to place, event to event. I do not miss trying to match the dress code for each event. And, while I miss meeting people and going to places just to sit down and have a dinner without a mask and the fear of being infected, I still don't miss having to run around and go from place to place. I don't think I miss that at all. I quite like the calm and the quiet and not having to rush time we are in right now.
What I did not miss, so उसको थोड़ा सा चेंज कर दे रही हूँ कि what I enjoyed during pandemic. I enjoyed cooking with my boys. I enjoyed painting. I started painting after a long time. So, and also doing some house chores, housework. I enjoy eating lunch together, which we have not done ever other than vacation. So lunch हमेशा सबका अलग होता है, बट अभी पेंडेमिक में क्योंकि सब लोग साथ रहते हैं तो फिर सब लोग साथ में लंच करते हैं। अगर साथ में नहीं भी कर रहे होते तो somebody helps out। अगर मेरा कुछ काम चल रहा होता है या राजिद का कोई काम चल रहा होता है तो बच्चे हेल्प कर देते हैं, वो कुछ अपनी कच्ची पक्की सी सैंडविच बना के खिला देते हैं। दैट आई रियली enjoyed. I wish they continue doing this and the value of family stays with them and they remember this time that we spent together in a fond way, and hope everybody stays safe.
My heart goes out for people who lost their loved ones during this pandemic. For me personally, this quarantine period had certain good points. After a long time, I could spend some time with my husband and my son, which would not have been possible if not for the quarantine.
I think maybe the most basic realization is that life is precious, and I feel like I'm not alone in that whole first few months of realizing, oh, I've been taking certain things for granted, like hugging my friends good morning when I saw them, hugging them goodbye, getting to be with my best friends in person every day, or just being able to meet them and go out. And maybe, I guess, personally for me, just like going to the grocery store with my mom and just being able to go and shop and without worrying about what we're touching and who we're meeting and how, like, one at a time and when we're going. I think that's something that you realize you've been taking for granted and shows how precious life is and how easy these things can start to flip and things can change on you. So you really should not be taking anything for granted, and that, you can talk to your friends online all the time, but there is something quite special about being together and being in person.
क्या लर्न किया विदाउट सोशल कांटेक्ट? सबसे बड़ी चीज़ यही लर्न की कि जो हम बाहरी कांटेक्ट, बाहरी दुनिया में कि बोर हुए हैं चलो यहाँ चलो, बोर हुए हैं चलो वहाँ चलो, वो हमने जो अपना क्वालिटी टाइम विद फैमिली के हम पास बैठ के भी जो फ़ोन में लगे रहते थे या टीवी देख रहे हैं, तो वो जो बातचीत हुई है, जो एक दूसरे से 1 to 1 बेसिस जिसे कहते हैं बातचीत हुई है, और फिर से पुराने तरीके से जो शेयर करना हुआ कि हाँ हम बता रहे हैं। नहीं तो धीरे धीरे ऐसा लगा था जैसे फैमिली में भी हम सिर्फ बड़े हाँ हूँ, बड़ी फॉर्मल सी बातचीत रह गई थी। वो जो साथ बैठे, वो बहुत बड़ी एक चीज़ हमने सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग से सीखी, और वो चीज़ें जो हमने उठा के दरकिनार कर दी थी, छोड़ो छोड़ो, वो आजमाना, किचन में हो चाहे आपकी हॉबीज़ से संबंधित हो कि नहीं नहीं अब छोड़ो, कौन बुनाई करेगा, कौन सिलाई करेगा, वो चीज़ें फिर से निकली हैं और लोगों ने उन्हें फिर से आजमाया है और उन्हें करके उसमें आपने खुशी महसूस की है, ये शायद सीखा हमने।